Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Friends in Recovery podcast. I am Mike Miles, the Podfather. I'm here with
Jersey Ed, guys.
That's right. And we have a mystery guest.
Mystery guest.
We didn't cover him over, but
we're going to put a bag over his head.
We could
walk
superimpose a question mark right over his face.
Yes, yeah. Maybe Carl, when he does it,
we'll make it hard for you.
Yeah, we'll put a question mark over his face. So, guys, we'll introduce our mystery guest in a minute. Some of you might know him by view. Some of you might know him by voice.
Yep,
but we're going to reveal who he is. So we're at Studio 21. Chrissy, Jonathan, are producers today.
Hi.
Hello, guys.
Hi,
What's
how
happening?
you doing?
Mr. Jonathan.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Mr. Jonathan, you were our original producer.
That's right.
Thank you for jumping on with us.
What always struck me as interesting about you guys is the biggest thing about life is not being afraid to fail. And you guys jumped into a medium that you weren't accustomed to, and you trusted us here at the studio to be able to be your training wheels. And you've grown all the way up to now. This is your fifth year.
Fifth year.
Congratulations. Yeah. And now you guys can do the show without me.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm out of a job.
He's out of a job. We got him out of a job. But real quick before we go into everything, I want to just give you some show notes here. So if you want to get a hold of us, help at friendsinrecoverypodcast.com is our email address. Our podcast hotline, non-emergency, is 800-989-6504. And our website is up and running, guys. It's up and running, friendsinrecoverycommunity.org. You can find everything on there, including the Fire Network. We are part of the Fire Network now, and you'll see who else is part of the Fire Network on there. And if you'd like to get a hold of Bambi, Beth, or myself, maybe mystery guest and Podfather, everybody's email address will be in the show notes. So look for all that in the show notes. This week's topic is our anniversary show, 5 years.
5-year anniversary. And you know, it's so good to be back here at Studio 21, which is right above Two Guys Smoke Shop in Salem, New Hampshire. Because the best part for me, other than helping people in their time of need, was we would just smoke cigars randomly throughout every show. And I watched the old shows, and it looks like there's a friggin' bonfire sometimes. We got cigars going everywhere.
I know. It's been crazy. I'm just trying to see if there's any comments. No comments.
And that's one of the things that has that it struck me about the recovery community is how prevalent cigars really are.
Sure.
Oh,
because cigars take time, and sometimes what you need so that you don't go to your vice of choice
100%.
Is something to do to take up that time.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I know so many people in recovery that this becomes, I hate to say vice because there's no addictive quality to cigars whatsoever,
Right.
but you do get addicted to the relaxation that you
Sure.
feel.
Yeah.
And I know so many people that sometimes what they needed was a little break where they could go off and be with their thoughts and not do whatever it is that they're not supposed to be doing.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is true because that's how the show started.
That's how we met.
Think about it. That's how we
right.
met. That's what we had. The one day we came in here, February 6th of whatever year it was, 5 years ago. We came in here, and the Podfather goes, "You want to go do a podcast?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, podcasts? I didn't even knew this studio existed. And how long we've been coming here, right, before that?" And I'm like, all right, let's go upstairs. And Mr. Jonathan was here, and we were like, oh, yeah. And you're right. We just dove into it. And the cigars really kind of relaxed us to get up here. And if you go back to the first show, it's you, me, and Jeff.
Jeff Zeisel, right?
And I had my tie and shirt on, and I'm like trembling,
no.
you know.
Yeah. And you got to remember, Ed would change shirts every show.
Yeah.
He'd have 5 shirts with him, and he'd be changing, and we had to see all his tattoos. And
Exactly.
his masculine physique,
Well, that was
Dad bod.
that my dad bod. Well, that was later on, right? That was later on in the next studio where you were at.
Yeah. No,
So
we did it here too. You changed.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did.
I've
Did I
seen you with a
change
shirt off many times.
It's edged in my mind. Trust me.
Oh my God! Well, but I remember doing it in the now. Let's forward fast to Sweet Studio.
Oh yes.
Right, Sweet
in
Studio.
Beverly. Yep.
Let's forward fast to Sweet
Right.
Studio.
We were there for about a year and a half. Correct.
I'm wondering if anybody knows who this guy here is.
Right.
Should we introduce him and then
Sure.
reveal?
It's time. It's
when
time for the unveiling.
when we did the show at Sweet Studio, there was a voice just like Mr. Jonathan,
Right.
And
Not just like.
no, not just like, but in the background, right?
Irreplaceable.
Yes, in the background, and we would talk about what everybody thought Sweets would look like.
Right. When he was dressed.
I saw the pictures.
You saw the pictures; they were not good.
Yeah, not impressed.
I did like you in those tights, though.
Yeah,
Those pink tights that you did have. So
we had a lot of fun with that.
absolutely. But we said we were going to reveal Sweets one day on the show because he was the voice, and we were with you guys, with your studio for about 2 years, right, give or take, and nobody ever seen you. So here it is, guys,
Here
the
he
big
is.
unveiling. Take that thing off
right.
his face, Carl, and this is Sweets. Sweets. So welcome to the show, Mike, or Sweets.
Thank you.
And you've been on our show before as
It's a
somebody
pleasure
else.
to be on the show as Sweet.
Yes, it is.
You know,
Yes, yeah.
You were very honest, and all kidding aside, when we first started this, you're always nervous, and we weren't really sure what we were doing. And then I think 6 weeks into it, David, who owns the studio, said, "You guys are really hitting it. You got a lot of views, a lot of people are watching." And he had about, at the time, he had 14 to 16 podcasts going. And we climbed right up there, and it was great. But going to Beverly, it was an atmosphere. Again, we could smoke cigars, Sweet Studio. But it was really good, too, because we never brought notes with us. We just would grab a topic and go. And Mike, Sweets, was so intuitively understand what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd chime in, and I'd be like, "Wow, this guy's really smart."
He knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, you got. I mean, when we came in, I mean, I don't know if anyone watched the first shows from Sweet Studio, but you evolved with it as well.
Yeah.
There was an evolution there
Yes.
of
Absolutely.
camera quality, of backgrounds.
A lot of changes.
A lot of changes.
I think the first podcast we did, we were sitting in lawn chairs
Yes.
with two stands, and then that thing from Staples behind us.
Yeah.
Go back and check out some of the
You
shows.
can kind of make out our faces with the camera we're using.
Wow, you left Mr. Jonathan for that. I bet he feels
Yeah. Thank God he's not here. Good thing he left already. So
Sweets would make a few trips to Best Buy once in a while.
yeah.
Technology need to be changed and fixed. And he always had an answer.
I know. Well, we were recording, and then all of a sudden something would go wrong. Let's go to Best Buy.
My favorite was the wood stove.
The wood stove was
my
awesome,
God,
right?
oh my
The
God,
wood stove
that's
would
right.
back up and the place would fill with smoke.
Yeah, the wood stove was very cozy, though. And we had some great guests there, too, you know.
We did.
You know, when I think of Itea, the girl whose daughter, took her own life, and Itea came on. And recently, she was on a show with Gloria Estefan and a few other people. And she was the classiest looking girl on there. And she's done so much, for the community of people, parents who have lost loved ones, to suicide.
Yeah.
And I just need to mention it because she attributes a lot. Every time I do write to her, if I see her here or there, I'll send her a text, and she'll always come back to the podcast she was on with us.
Wow. Yeah, that was a good podcast,
Yeah.
and that was at Sweet Studio, and we had some great times here at this studio, guys. You know what? I think what I like about all this, we interviewed so many people. Dr. Jeff Brandler,
Kevin Dixon,
you name it.
breath therapist. We had so many people.
Yeah, we just interviewed Lilo Brancato from A Bronx Tale.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
show will be coming out next week.
crazy.
If you're watching on
Great movie.
Facebook.
Great movie.
Yeah, so
One
he
of my
was on
favorites.
there. Yeah,
Mine too. It was
Yeah.
just on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So, but you know what? We're helping people. That's what we're doing. We're getting the message out.
Right.
We're helping people from Jonathan to Sweets to back here with Chrissy at the studio again 5 years later. I mean, I can't tell you how many people we helped. That's the main thing. And I know we joke around a lot on the show, and especially with Sweets, we always had fun in those studios. And then there were some tough times too in those studios because we would record 4 shows
in
a day, and then 4 shows the next day.
We'd get on each other's nerves once in a while.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Who's going to screw with Sweets? The two of
Sweets
us
always won.
The two of us would have a hard time.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big studio. There wasn't a lot of room.
No.
You know, and you know, you guys talked about learning something, and you know, I like how Jonathan brought up the cigars, and it kind of makes us take time.
Right.
And you know, getting together and doing the podcast did the same for me. I mean, no matter what else was going on in our day, we blocked off however many hours, and we just sat down and started chugging away at topics, and it was almost impossible not to get drawn into the topic and start thinking about your own life and your own recovery, and you know, empathizing and having compassion for people in different situations. And you know, the stories that you guys would tell and the stuff that you know you brought to the table with the guests was just it was great for me too.
Yeah.
Well,
and
you certainly brought a lot to every podcast we did out of Sweets.
Yeah.
And,
we had a. I mean, don't get me wrong, Chrissy. We love this studio. Obviously, you weren't there at the time, but
Maybe you would have stayed if I was.
Well, you're much better looking than Sweets. I gotta be honest. Okay?
I don't know. He's pretty handsome.
He is pretty handsome, but
We got Beth in the chat room here. She's surprised you had a studio at all.
Beth, hey Beth. Beth is our co-host now on the new show, on the new podcast.
What's up, Beth?
Hey Beth, how you doing? So I would like to bring up Beth and Bambi real quick too, because you've got to interview with them, and they're 2 wonderful women that are amazing in recovery, just do amazing things for recovery for themselves. They sponsor all kinds of women. Like, I sit there and I hear them talk who their sponsor. I'm like, yeah, I got 2. But they sponsor everybody. But the stuff that they bring to the show is amazing, you know. And everybody, the other old hosts, Miss Meg, remember Miss Meg?
Sure.
Miss Meg was on for a while.
Skylar,
Skylar,
love Skylar.
Skylar,
Yep.
Tiffany. Tiffany was on for a while. But I do want to go back to the beginning of last year. We started doing the steps of the month.
Yeah.
Right? And that was a huge undertaking, guys.
It sure is.
If you could look back to January of 2021. 21.
Oh, 21. Sorry.
You will see all the steps. So January we did step 1, talked about it. February step 2. We even had Jeff on as a clinical look at the steps. So we got a lot of comments about the clinical piece of everything. And you want to talk about like you said, Sweets is you know, kind of digging deep into ourselves and really looking at our recovery. When I worked all those steps every week, I mean, I had to work the steps.
Right.
I had to find out about the steps. I had to talk to my sponsor about the steps. He's like, well, if you're going to do the steps, you might as well just do them. So I did all the steps on top of you know, talking about the steps. Right. So Skylar and Tiffany were part of that at the beginning of the year, and then Bambi and Beth came in to finish the year off just unbelievable with the steps.
Right.
They added so much.
Right.
So if you guys get a chance, look back and take a look at the show of last year.
If you go back 3.5 years ago, we had Rich the Step Guy.
The Step Guy, Rich.
And we
the
did
step
steps
guy.
here at Studio 21, and Rich would do a step once a week.
Once a month. Once a month.
I thought it was once a week. Yeah, it might have been once a month.
Yeah.
But and again, he was he understood exactly what we wanted him to do, and he really put a lot of effort into it.
He did.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah, he did. And a lot of good things came out of it. And I know from my recovery, it just kind of exploded just doing this podcast. And I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if we can say fuck on here. I had no idea what we could do.
You said it anyway.
I said it. So and then when I learned that we could say it on here, and then it pissed the Podfather off. Guess what I was saying a lot. So, but no, we learned a lot, and I just want so this is Sweets. What were some of your highlights of when we were in the studio with you? What was some of the, you know, were you like, I remember sometimes like waking you up to do the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Out there in my hoodie. Coffee.
starting a fire and all that. But what were some of the highlights? Did it help your recovery? Did it help? I don't know.
You know, I've got my own thing in recovery. You guys know that I do my own stuff, but you for me, it was just like I was saying earlier, taking the day. Like it was we carve out the day. We knew this is what we were doing, and it gave me a chance to, to hear the topics that were coming up, because I never know what I need to think about that day. I never know what I need to hear. And so if I'm shopping for topics, I'm gonna, probably pick something stupid. Yeah. But I didn't get to shop for the topics. They came to me that day. Right. And you guys would bring something to the table, or a question, or something from a listener, and that would be the topic, and it would force me into conversations and thoughts about things that I didn't really know I needed to think about or hear. Yeah. And so that's my favorite part, because whatever the conversation was, I had like, you can't go in the pool without getting wet. Yeah. Right? I couldn't sit in the conversation without getting a piece of it on me. And I think the questions that you guys asked, I think the the honesty that happened in that room, like seeing, you showing emotion at certain situations, you showing emotion, and, talking about real life stuff like our kids, our family, our vulnerability, our weaknesses, our strengths. Yeah. And every single one of those conversations had an impact. Yeah. I mean, if I was listening to that, that would be the topic I'd be thinking about. And then I'd have to put myself in those shoes. Like, where am I in that? What am I doing about that? And so it was, for me, I really enjoyed the, taking the day and having to face all those topics in the course.
And we threw you into it. We asked you those questions. You didn't have no choice.
You just say, "What do you think, sweet?" Everyone just
like, huh?
Sit quiet and wait for me to speak. Yeah.
And nobody's seen him doing this to give us the finger, and like walking out, throwing his headset down. You didn't see that.
No, because it didn't happen.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, what I thought was really beneficial and really made me realize we were doing something that was touching society was when we got the call, or when Eddie got the call from the woman from AT&T. And she was on her way to work, and she was looking for a podcast for somebody close to her, and she found Friends in Recovery and contacted us. Now, AT&T is a huge conglomerate, and they wanted to sponsor our show, which was very touching. I mean, we've never made money off of this.
No, still not.
But it was nice having somebody.
Still costing money.
And it was nice having somebody pay for it. Yeah. And it was great. And it kind of gave us a boost. Yeah. Feeling like we were accomplishing something. And I think what's funny too is we ended up with one stalker, and
that's how you know you made it.
Exactly. Yeah. Some girl. My son had moved out of his house, and a new person bought it, and I was over there picking up mail, and some girl comes running down the driveway, and she's looking at me, and because my son's last name is Miles, and she's like, "Oh, you're the Podfather." And I'm like, "Yeah, can I take a picture with you?" I'm like, "With me?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, I thought she was screwing with me, But what's really funny is she was in recovery, and and when I say it in a nice way, stalker, she's a wonderful girl.
Yeah, she is.
But I just thought it was touching, Yeah. And I was thinking, wow, I guess we've made it.
That is how you know, guys.
Exactly. Well, the other thing too is that when I was preparing for the show, I was watching I was looking at some of the old comments, and I really didn't go through the comments. I go through them a lot now because it's important to.
Well, they're in real time now too.
Yeah, they're in real time. Yeah, a bunch are coming up now on Facebook Live. So, but there were people like, "You changed my life." This podcast is amazing. You helped my family. I mean, it just just on and on and on. I mean, not tons of them, but still. I mean, our goal was to help change lives, and they're telling us on there that they did, and it's just incredible, like what we did in 5 years. Yep. In 5 years, right? And where we're at today, we're able to come back here, for 5 years later to sit here and just kind of reminisce and just help people.
It's a real treat to come back here and to do this. It was a great idea of yours, Ed, to come up here today and do a 5-year anniversary.
Let's just say that to make me feel good, right, guys?
You got Michelle in the chat room saying, "Happy anniversary, guys."
Michelle W, right? Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Yes. How are you? Lisa. Hey, Lisa. Who else is here? That's it?
That's it. I think it's
They're all here.
Oh, all right. They're all here. All the three listeners
are here. When I think about a podcast, I think about, it's kind of like a window into a conversation. Right? It's like a voyeurism almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a real podcast to get drawn into it needs to feel like you're part of the conversation. And that's where, when we got together, or at least when I was part of it, we got together and the conversations got so real that sometimes I forgot we were having a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually just felt like we were having a really philosophical, intellectual discussion about topics that were happening in our lives. And, as a guest or as somebody listening, I'm hoping that we were able to get some of that across to them because that, to me, if I'm driving in my car, if I'm working out or whatever it is and I'm listening, that's what I'm looking for. I just want to feel like I'm part of the conversation and I want to hear other people's thoughts and feelings on stuff, not necessarily like an instructional thing. You go over the steps, you talk about things that people can look into later on, but just to feel like they're part of the conversation. I think that's something you guys do well.
Wow, thanks.
Because that's... Why else would I listen to you?
But it's true. It's true.
And I do. I pop up on your thing.
You do.
I watch now.
You do.
Occasionally.
Yeah. So we do Facebook Live every time we do this show. It's just a little bonus that we've been doing that. We just started that, I think, last year. And we were a little, and I think I even spoke to you, or I think I spoke to Carl or somebody about, be
harder
careful.
when you get older, right?
Yes, it is. Yes. Well, thanks for helping me up here and putting me in this chair and propping me up. But that be careful because, you might lose some of your audience, but we didn't. We've gained a lot of audience. Right, it's just incredible, like everybody that's watching and listening and you kind of, like I said, getting something out of this show, getting something out of the show. Because when we first walked into this studio, and I'm telling you, like walking up here and seeing the studio, it was like, it looks like ESPN. I mean, not ESPN, but it's nothing I've ever
equipment
seen.
Here. We have a producer here.
Yeah.
We've always had good producers, whether it was here or at Sweets. But I think it's a real professional podcast. Eddie and I didn't even know what a podcast was. We honestly, we had an idea. It's on your phone. What is it? And Mr. Jonathan, guy's great. John's not in recovery, but you know what? He's like a mentor.
Yeah.
He's so intuitive about life and food and everything. Clothes, right? Dance steps. Whatever you can imagine. But I love coming here. I come here Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. I know it sounds like I'm a fanatic with cigars.
Like a stalker?
Like a stalker.
But I work right down the street at Crossroads on Salem Street, and I come here and I grab a couple cigars on those 3 days. And honestly, I come here to see Jonathan and just to get a little burst of 5-minute conversation. And there was a time when we just knew Jonathan from once a week when we'd come in here. We knew him, but we didn't speak to him as much. But to bond a friendship with him, to forge a friendship with him, has been really good for me. And I've been in recovery a long time, 36 years sober. I think that's a landmark that I'm very proud of. I don't brag about it because we only get a day at a time. But talking to Jonathan has helped me in so many ways. Just in a 2-minute conversation, he's really a special guy. We're very fortunate.
And he did definitely brought us in and helped us get through some things at the beginning. And same thing with you, Sweets, at the beginning. Because it was a new studio. I'm like, is anybody going to watch this? Maybe 5 people watched it and now 6 people watch it. But you got us through that too, let's do this, let's do that. And I remember touching the microphone and you would freak out. Remember? I wish we had that on Facebook Live when all that was going.
Eddie's antics. That's what I used to think. Eddie's antics.
Oh my God, the outtakes of it all.
Don't touch that. Leave that alone.
Just don't touch the microphones.
I should have saved everything I cut out.
I know.
That'd be good.
That would have been good. But so that was like some of the stuff through the years. I do remember one show, Podfather, and I think it wasn't too soon after we did, and correct me if I'm wrong, after we started this, your birthday show. We did a birthday show for you,
we had
right?
A cake.
We had a cake. We had a cake. Yeah. We had a cake
my
here.
65th birthday.
65.
Right.
Yeah. And
So
I remember
65 cigars lit.
Yes.
On the cake.
65.
Sponsored by 2 guys.
Yeah,
obviously,
exactly.
I had my oldest daughter, Michelle. I had her on one of the shows.
Yep.
She was very good friends, still is with Itea. Excuse me, the girl whose daughter took her life. And it was just wonderful, having my daughter who works at a good-sized court, and she's a clerk. She has 2 children. And what I love about it is I have 2 grandchildren they're amazing. I've never had a problem with either one of them. And it's just, that's because their mother raised them properly. But she was one of our biggest fans. She'd watch the show every week, every Tuesday. Yep, she thought it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember her watching the show all the time. And then just, through the years of learning things and understanding things, and, when we were getting ready here, Podfather and I were sitting down talking what we were going to talk about, and we just said, let's just let it flow and figure out what's going on. And we wanted to kind of reveal Sweets and let everybody know who Sweets is, because you're definitely a big part of Friends in Recovery. We're not talking about a show. We're not talking about a studio. We're not talking about, all the fancy stuff here. We're talking about information that's going to change people's lives. Right. And that's what we all did, including Jonathan and Chrissy. You're part of the Friends in Recovery now too, if you know it.
Is that on the 10th, maybe on the 10th anniversary, you can reveal me?
Yes, we can reveal you at the 10th anniversary, yes.
You're going to have to come to the nursing home, I think. Though.
All right, fine.
Is Mike available?
Like, Podfather, wake up.
Yeah.
Grandpa, look at the camera.
Well, can you do remote cameras from the nursing home for us?
We'll figure it out.
All right, good.
Phone them in.
Yeah, exactly. So
get the nurses to put them on Zoom.
Well, one of the pieces of this, like when you guys came over, and it's Friends in Recovery. You know what I mean? And I think everything was focused on recovery, which is good. And then I saw the evolution of that, which is that, I look at recovery as like a hill in front of a mountain range. You know what I mean? It's a great hill to get to the top of. You should be proud of that. But all that does is really lay the foundation. You know what I mean? A nice foundation with a top over it is not nice.
No,
You know what I mean? Just stop building a house. And so, every episode, I think we talked about recovery, but we also talked about building that house. We talked about parenting. We talked about relationships. We talked about, being men in recovery, being women in recovery. We talked about, feeling normal. We talked about, facing things like COVID. We talked about, even though it's Friends in Recovery, I think we gave through a recovering person's lens, a lot of insight into the real world, and in real topics. And that is the genuine piece of it that without that, I don't know. How much recovery can you talk about?
Exactly. Right? No,
there's only 12 steps. I mean, how many can you get through?
There was a stat last week I heard on one of the radio stations, and they were talking about 31 million people in recovery. 31 million, which is, there's over 300,000 people in this country. 31 million people in this country are in recovery in some form or another. Doesn't all have to be just substance, alcohol, drugs. It could be anything. But I thought, wow, that's a huge audience, 31 million. And to me, the steps are so basic. There's talk in some meetings about changing some of the words. Everything it was written in the 40s, and a lot of it is inundated. I mean, it's all about male. They don't talk about he and she. They use he or him.
Him or his,
So I can understand why they want to change some of that, and I'm fine with that. But I think the basic steps, when you read steps 1 through 12, and I do a step meeting every Tuesday night and have for 2 years, I've gotten so much out of the steps. It's just a way of living. It really is. Whether you have a substance abuse problem or not. It's really amazing.
I agree. Yeah,
very helpful.
Podfather, I want to switch gears here and talk about the name Friends in Recovery, because we were all talking about Friends in Recovery. You came up with that name.
Yeah.
Right. You came up with that name. How, when you said it, because I remember we were sitting here thinking of a name of a show, and I couldn't think of anything. And what was your thoughts on that?
It was you and I. We really didn't know each other. We met through Jeff.
Yep.
And you do what you do. I'm a therapist. I have an office in Chelmsford. I've been there 21 years. You were without a doubt, and you still are one of the most helpful persons I've ever met, because you're right there. Text or a phone call, I never have to wait, and you've helped so many people. I was a cop for 35 years in Lowell, and cops are hard sometimes to deal with as far as getting them help. They don't trust anybody. So I always felt when I sent somebody to you in the place you used to work at, I always felt comfortable. And I said, I've sent probably 20 people, 24 people, maybe 24, I guess, over the years. But our friendship and I thought this would Friends and Women in Recovery. So it just popped up.
Yeah.
And it was no big, the light didn't go on over Marblehead, but it certainly fits this program.
It does.
Yeah.
And that lasted the 5 years here, and week after week after week, we've been doing this show for 5 years. We took some time off sometimes.
Right.
I think COVID got a little crazy, and then we had to shift during COVID. Even like the podcast picks a week. Remember those? Yeah.
I do.
Podcast pick of the week, right?
And you did it. And there's another thing. That was a lot of extra work.
Yeah.
And you found one of the best podcasts I've ever heard is your friends Carl out in California.
Soberpod, right?
Soberpod.
Yeah.
And those guys are just a scream. I mean, they can't speak English, but, lobster, what the fuck's a lobster?
That was enjoyable listening to them try to mimic our accents.
Yeah.
Surfing dudes.
I tell you a quick story about them. So Carl's a dear friend of mine now. I talk to him probably, if not once a day, at least 3 times a week, right? Stalker. Carl is Stalker, right? So it's Chelsea and Carl now, and their show evolved too. If you guys take a look, look at Soberpod, and they just have an amazing show. And that's how I found them through the podcast pick of the week. Mm-hmm. And I guess they noticed that we were talking about them because they had 2 viewers and we had 2 viewers. They're like, all right, we'll put them all together. We'll have 4 fucking viewers. But so then Carl was like, he just. I was texting him on Facebook, the what is it called? The messenger thing I was texting him on. And I'm like, hey, just, here's my number, give me a call. He would not fucking call me, right? It took like 6 months. I'm like, because I wanted to get him on the show, because it was Steve, Carl, and Steve's wife. I forgot Steve's wife's name, but if you go back, but I come to find out that there was a reason why.
What was it?
Well, it had to do with somebody on the show and a stalker.
Okay.
So I'm thinking to myself, fuck, he thought I was a stalker.
He knows you.
Yeah, he knows me, exactly. But we became good friends.
Right.
We even did Two Worlds Collide podcast. You remember that?
Yeah, really? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, when we brought them together.
Yeah, we all brought everybody together.
I remember that.
Everybody on the show.
Mike was amazing. He's like the magician because whatever we came up with, I can do that. We'll do that.
I know.
It was like he never even hesitated.
I know.
Just real quick, I want to say, and this means a lot to me. I remember Dave Garoppolo sitting right there. I don't know. Jonathan was here with him, and then the young man that used to run the espresso machine over there.
Yeah. Sean.
Yep. And for Dave Garoppolo, now I've known him for almost 30 years. I've been coming to 2 guys. For him, one day, I think it was our 4th or 5th podcast, right around there. We hadn't done many. But he said, hey, you know what? You guys are really good. He goes, and of course, I'm thinking business-wise. He's blowing smoke up our ass. He just wants more money, He said, you really know what you're talking about. Because we never had a script. We just come up and do it. Yeah. But getting a compliment from a guy who is so successful, so understanding about life. And, I mean, his radio on WRKO in Lowell, which is a good, a big station, millions of viewers, listeners, he would pay money to hawk his products, 2 Guys Smoke Shop. I used to hear the commercials. And then all of a sudden, he's not doing them anymore. He's doing his own, and he's charging people to do commercials here. And I thought, this guy is so smart.
Well, Dave even does his own shows. What's his show on the weekend?
Ash Holes, right?
So Ash Holes we do during the week. That's a 40-minute show, but he does the big 2-hour, the big show, if you will, the Cigar Authority every Saturday.
Yeah.
12.
The one that hasn't missed an episode in how many years?
12.
12 years.
12 years.
So 12 years ago, he started podcasts.
Yeah.
He started doing a podcast. 5 years ago, we started. I mean, it's amazing. Like, podcast 12 years ago was nothing. I mean, there was nothing going on with podcasts. Now everybody has one. Even Mike and I have a podcast.
Which shows anyone can do it.
Anybody can do this. Just find a place, get
Just
Zoom,
need 4
and
listeners.
Call Studio 21 Podcast.
There you go.
and that's how it start the show. Hey, welcome to Friends in Recovery Podcast live from Studio 21, right?
Yeah.
And when we switched, my favorite part was that you started trying to do scripts. Right? So we went from just like some casual, hey, this is us, and then he showed the page, right? And we all had to sit and watch and
read through it.
Was painful. It was
hard. It was hard.
It was.
Go back and listen.
Yeah,
I want you to go back and listen.
If you ever watch Warner Brothers, Porky Pig.
Humana.
Yeah, that was it.
Boy.
I know. Well, I've got two wonderful ladies on the show now that do all the reading for me. Okay,
nice. Yeah.
they do all the reading.
You're
for
just
me.
the talent now.
They're exactly.
great girls.
The show is now called, and we didn't change it on Facebook or on YouTube or whatever, but the show is called Friends in Recovery with Jersey Ed. That's what it's called now.
Huh?
You are the talent.
I am
Yep,
the
you are
talent.
the
So
talent.
this face here you see attracts millions of viewers.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You don't put your name on something until you're a big deal.
That's
That's
right.
right,
See
that's
that?
right.
Exactly.
And I also came up with the name Podfather, and I offered it to Dave because Dave goes, "What a great name, Podfather! How'd you think of that?" I said, "I don't know. I'm old."
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you want it? Do you want it? Because you have a
We did.
podcast." He goes, "No, you keep it." So I'm glad I did.
Yep.
You know.
And then you start talking on the show here, like, we have to get you a nickname. I'm like, no, I don't want a nickname.
Yeah.
I'm Ed Chancher. That's all I am. And then he comes up with Jersey.
Jersey
I'm
Ed.
like, fuck, man. I'm like, I don't want this Jersey Ed thing. And it stuck. I've been Jersey.
You can't hide now.
I know.
I'm a
I
big
can't
fan
hide
of Jersey
now.
Mike, so
Yeah, I know.
I didn't have to go far for that one.
I know.
Great subs.
And and the show has evolved in many ways, But the one way it didn't evolve is that we didn't stop helping people when that phone rang. And I know I'm bringing it back to that because that's what it is to me.
it is.
This show
100%.
is that to me.
100%.
I remember, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I remember about last summer, I got a phone call from a frantic woman on the hotline. And she did not know what to do. Young person, her life was upside down. I gave her, and I'll talk about the meetings here in a minute because Friends in Recovery evolved into something huge now. It's a community now. It's a huge community. A movement, yeah, absolutely. And what happened was I gave her the Friends in Recovery information to go into the meetings, and she's been on the meetings ever since. She's been sober. She's been doing amazing. Right. So that's some of the highlights that out of all these 5 years that happened. And if this show wasn't on here, who knows where she would be?
I've always said, even before we did podcasts, I've always been about helping people. And I've always said, if I've helped one person, I was on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings in 1989, which is a huge show back in the day. And it was about a cop in recovery who was able, with drugs, who was able to continue in his career.
Wow.
I had been 14 months sober, 16, whatever it was. Now here I am 36 years, later, but 30-something years later. But I've always said if I just help one person, I've gotten more cards and letters over the years from people.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's been more than one person. But that's what it's about, right? We're here to help people.
Exactly.
I just remember going to my first AA meeting, petrified,
Yeah.
and this big guy comes over, "Hey, how you doing?" Shakes my hand.
Yeah.
He's been my sponsor ever since. He's 84 years old, Jim Walmsley. God bless you. If he watches this, he's losing his hearing. He's losing his eyesight. The three of us combined can never help as many people as this guy. Oh, he's amazing. Just an amazing guy. And that's what he does. He always looks for the new people, puts his hand out, drives them to meetings, always offers to help them in any way. Tough love, though. No bullshit with him.
The old dinosaur stuff.
Right.
So now each one of us here had something to do with the evolution of Friends in Recovery.
100%.
Because Podfather and I started it with Jeff. And then we switched over with you, Sweets. And then, I don't know, 2 years we were with you in the studio just helping people. And that's when we kind of broke away from a lot of the interviews and started talking amongst ourselves. We had some topics.
Yeah, every show was a guest.
It was a guest.
Topics
We
too.
put topics into it. I also want to recognize Melissa. Melissa did a lot to get these guests on here.
Huge.
Melissa used to order us lunch.
Yeah, she did a great job, right? Lunch was a big thing. at
Lunch
Sweet
was,
Studio.
it was a big thing. We stopped and we had lunch all the time, man. It was great. It was
Good
like
food, too.
It was like we were stars, right? Somebody, into this shed that we're sitting in with a fucking fire to keep us warm in the winter. Smoke everywhere.
And good from the inside.
It did.
it
It
was
looks good.
beautiful.
Absolutely.
Pull up to it and you're like, what are they doing in there?
Exactly.
I love that shit.
And those poor delivery guys, like it looked the shed or the garage looked like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah, right.
That was to keep people away.
Yes, exactly.
I think there's raccoons that live in there now.
Exactly.
What I loved about Suite Studio 2 with the planes flying over, like 40 feet above us, you know.
Well, it was they had the
Helicopters.
the helicopter. Yeah, so it was
Right.
the
hospital.
The hospital,
the
right,
hospital.
right.
They'd fly right over the house.
Yeah.
And so that's an immediate break. All right, hold, guys.
I used to love
Helicopters coming in.
The ride was 40 minutes for me, 45 minutes, but it was an
one cigar.
enjoyable ride, you know.
One cigar.
One
Yeah,
cigar.
that's right.
Yeah.
And getting there, I really liked it. This is a 20-minute ride from my house. And
Half a cigar.
And
how we measure things, yeah.
speaking of
That's right.
cigars,
Yeah.
when we would do all those shows, I smoked so many cigars.
Yeah.
By the time I was done, I was so lightheaded. I was like, oh.
Well, you had to have one for each show.
We did,
And
yeah.
then there was
That's
like
right.
the casual one we had to
Yeah, in
have
between, while we're eating and all that. So that was all part of the development of Friends in Recovery. And then March 16th of 2020 hit, and we weren't able to come up to the studio anymore.
Yep.
And you figured out how to put us all together.
Yep.
And it was because of you, the show's,
it
that
going.
period,
Yep.
because I wouldn't know how to do it. Because of you, Sweets, you pushed us into the next realm of Friends in Recovery.
A lot of work.
And that was really important.
Yep.
That part of Friends in Recovery, you wouldn't believe all the people that Friends in Recovery community is helping because of what we did. So what we did, Melissa, Stacy, my wife, and myself. Really, Stacy and Melissa.
No, just a talent.
Yeah, I'm just this
be
pretty
honest,
face
'cause they're
guy.
gonna be watching this.
Yeah, this pretty face here. They literally put on March 17th or 16th or whatever it was. They put an AA meeting or a 12-step meeting together, right? Because of what we were doing. And if you look back in December of 2019, we did a show, a virtual AA meeting. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
I remember that, yeah.
That show has like 30,000 views on it now because I guess the pandemic hit and everything, and everybody was like, well, what's a AA meeting? How do you do it virtually? So that turned into helping people. We had 50, 60 people on these meetings. I don't know how we got them because we weren't on AA's website. People would just show up and they would be out. And I am telling you, I have hosts on our meetings still to this day that started with us from the beginning.
Wow.
They're still hosted. Our meetings are not 50 or 60 anymore, but they're up there. We have 2 meetings a day, 7 days a week. And we have an AA meeting on a Saturday. We also got Friends in Recovery Adventures. We did kayak trips, 100-mile kayak trips. We're doing a camping trip in February, a winter camping trip. We got cold plunges, and this is everybody in recovery. We're bringing people together. Bambi lives in Ohio.
Right.
Not in Ohio. She's a Buckeyes fan, but she lives in Illinois, and she came out to when we came in from the the kayak trip. She came out and probably 20 other Friends in Recovery from all over the country came there and threw a party for us when we came in. So we brought a huge community together. Bambi sponsors so many people on Friends in Recovery because of this.
Sure.
Because of this.
And I just want to mention this is very important. Bob Cox, who is a friend of Friends in Recovery, and he's a friend of us, he started a place in Lowell called the Bridge Club. And he was looking for a location. I bring him to some old paint shop. I don't know how big it was, maybe as big as this room here, 12 by 12, 14 by 14. He's like, nah, too small. I'm like, this guy's a pain in the ass. He takes me to this old building that is huge. It's 30,000 square feet, 2 floors, an elevator. I'm like, Bob, how are you going to afford this, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. Well, he's done it.
Yeah. Wow.
And he's got Derek Sanderson from the Bruins. They're close friends now. He's helped so many people, and he was an original client from Genesis. He met you.
Yep.
Crossroads, right down the street here, 155 Main Street, Salem, New Hampshire. Again, there's people there that are going to be watching this, clients. All through the pandemic, all through COVID, we would have 18, 20 people a night in these 2 rooms. Wearing masks if you want. You didn't have to. Nobody caught COVID. None of the clients caught it. But I really believe when I tell people I have cards, give them Friends in Recovery, then you get a call. Hey, this is amazing. They have 2 meetings a day. They were telling me more about the new because they're watching the most recent shows.
Yeah.
So,
and even if you're watching on YouTube, and thank you, Chrissy, for putting that up for us. Our original Friends in Recovery, the black label, and now this is Friends in Recovery Communities today.
That's right. I remember that label.
Yeah, you remember that. So that's how we grew through. I know there was one in between there too, and that was at your studio.
Yeah, it's a picture of Ed. It's all by himself.
yeah.
It says, I did this on my own.
Yeah, exactly.
My show.
My show,
Right,
my show.
right. But Friends in Recovery, so we turned it into a 501c3. So we're nonprofit now, and you were a big help with that too, helping us kind of steer us through some of that stuff. And we survive on donations now because we don't have anybody paying for us. And if you guys want to make a donation,
how can people donate?
they can donate. That's a good question, Sweets. No, we set this up, right?
Yeah.
No, you can go to our website, friendsinrecovery.org. And there's right on the website, Carl put it on your click, however you want to pay, through Venmo, through whatever.
Right. Is there like a maximum amount somebody can donate?
$1 billion they can donate.
It maxes out at $1 billion?
It maxes out at $1 billion, yes.
Well, there you go.
But no, if you guys feel, please, if you want to go to the website, please make a donation, because that's how this is running. And then our vision, and I'm going to ask you later on to help us, is to do what Bob Cox did. Get a Friends in Recovery community center out there. That is what Stacy and I, our vision, and Bambi's huge part of this.
There's no doubt in my mind that'll happen, because I really believe you are rabid about this. This is you love it.
It's our passion project.
You got more excited about this than I've ever seen anyone.
Rabbit. Okay, rabbit's better.
I can always come up with a word. That's good. He's thinking of Bugs Bunny, But you will do it. There's no doubt in my mind. You've gone from Genesis to where you are now without blinking an eye. And you know what? A lot of people, they change jobs midlife. I mean, they have crisis. They can't get out of their funk. Mm-hmm. You never even blinked, I don't think. You just kept going. All right, I'm going to do this now. So there's no doubt in my mind you will do it. But I think it's very important for people to know donations would be much appreciated. Yeah. And they are tax deductible as well, because you're giving to a nonprofit organization that helps people. Yeah. That's all. We don't make money doing this.
No.
We spend our own money doing this.
We do. And at the beginning, when we kind of transitioned into Stacy and I taking this over, money came out of our pocket to do this. And then we started asking for donations, and it all just kind of worked out to where, but we have to keep it going, with the donations, and that's how this all works. And this show is not a telethon to ask for money.
No.
But I just want everybody to understand how all this stuff works, For all those, we have specialty meetings too. Stacy just started a trauma to triumph meeting once a month on, I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday nights. We do a loved ones meeting on Monday nights. We do Celebrate Friends in Recovery on Fridays.
I've been on that meeting.
Yes, you have. Yeah, you have. Yep, absolutely. What else we do? We do a yoga. We do a meditation. There's all kinds of stuff that we're doing with Friends in Recovery now because of the way it went, and we're open to other ideas too. If you have any ideas, please, send us an email. We'd be more than happy to put those ideas out, because that's how this works. There's a reason why it says Friends in Recovery Community, right? Not because Ed and Podfather and Sweets did this and Mr. Jonathan. That's not what we did. We were just part of that vehicle to get us to where we're at today, to help more people. And 10 years from now, who knows where we'll be? Who we'll be helping. I hope that this keeps going and going and going for decades and generations, and that's kind of my hope for all this.
So when it gets to that point, will it still have your name on it?
The podcast will.
Oh, well.
The podcast will. Not the community.
It'll be the Friends in Recovery Community Podcast with Jersey Ed, hosted by whoever the next.
Hosted by. I
just want to make sure.
Exactly.
So for all the listeners, the name won't change.
The name will not change.
No.
100 years from now, the name will not change.
At least he remembers us. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought of you
every
guys
5 years.
Yeah.
Every 5 years.
Drag us out of March.
Yeah.
I'm running the show now. But,
Do you guys remember me? Yeah, come on back on that show. Let's do it again. I just want to just ask you guys. We're going to sum it up here, and what's your thoughts on what's going on in recovery, on Friends in Recovery, how we did it, where we're going, and just even ideas. What do you guys have, like, visions for us for Friends in Recovery? Because you guys are part of it. I know that's a tough, loaded question, but when it comes from the heart, it's easy.
Yeah.
You know?
I had a conversation with a friend of mine this morning, and I'm a Freemason. I don't know if you guys know that. And Freemasonry was integral in my early days of recovery. You know, their whole thing is, you know, making good men great. That's the part of it I bought into. And, you know, I was talking earlier about personal development and growth, you know, and how big that was for me in early recovery, because recovery was the foundation and that personal development and growth was the house, you know, that I now live in. And that community was the only thing I had access to at the time. You know, I obviously had the fellowship of AA and stuff, but I needed people in my life that knew how to take me a step further. And, you know, one of the things I was talking about with a friend of mine this morning was just how important it is to feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself, you know. And a lot of times we use the fellowship for that, or community for that, or anything like that. And so, you know, I love the idea of, you know, the future of this being for the community and making sure that people have access to information, fellowship, stuff like that. So, I mean, I think that's a great direction.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I see it too. And again, I can't do it alone. I have to have, you know, a whole
But you
team
can put
of
your name
people.
on it.
But I can put my name on it. Carl, cut all that out, Carl.
Yeah. No.
I'd like to comment on that. And
Sure.
This is how I see it. For me, it's been family. And I like what you just said about Freemasons. I've known many Masons. The Masonic Temple in Lowell is right across from the police station. And I used to walk the beat, and you know, I'd see these guys in these uniforms and old timers, and you know, I always had an interest in just talking to them. And then I went to a few lodge meetings. I'd be in uniform, but I'd just stand in the back, and I was just amazed by some of the people that were there that I known from the city of Lowell, you know. But for me, when I look back on the years, you know, I'm pushing 70. I mean, we're only given so many years on this earth. The average life expectancy of a white male right now is about 79. It used to be a little bit higher. COVID really knocked it down. But my point is, I don't know how many years we have left here, whatever. But I do know that my family, my wife, my children, my grandchildren, my sisters, everybody that I'm closest with, you know, that really a part of my life every day, they deserve a lot of credit. And I don't know your wife as well as, you know, I should, Ed, but I really believe you have that type of support. And you know it as well as I do. But I think family, when they have somebody that's an addict or an alcoholic that needs help, and we're there to help them, everyone's scared, everyone's nervous, they don't know exactly what's going to happen. But it's a family disease. Addiction's a family disease. You know, the old war cry, I'm only hurting myself. Well, guess what? That's bullshit. You're hurting a lot more than yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're hurting your family, the people that matter the most, the people that are going to shed tears when you're gone, and they're going to think of you every single day the rest of their lives. So to me, I think when you have a cohesive family that understands who you are, they know you have good intentions, you know, I can't tell you how many clients I've never charged because I just didn't. You know, I just didn't. I've made money, you know, but I'm not about the money. I'm about helping. If you know, that's the last question I ask them is, "What do you have for insurance?" Or, you know, how are you going to pay me? You know,
by the way,
there is a payment to this. But Podfather, you know what? And I'm going to sum it up here too, and I'm going to go off of what both of you guys were talking about, is that this community, when we started this in March of 2020, when we started Friends in Recovery Community, this was all some people just had.
Yeah.
This on a screen. There was people stuck in their houses trying to figure out how the fuck do I stop drinking.
Right.
And Friends in Recovery helped them. Right. The podcast, the meetings. I don't want to mention anybody's names, but he hosts one of our meetings, and he came on here in the middle of the pandemic, or right at the beginning of the pandemic, and he's now hosting meetings for us.
Amazing.
He said he's been to 1 or 2 outside meetings, but this is how he got sober. And he was going through a lot in his life, a lot of changes, really no support in his life. And now everybody loves him. Everybody loves him. And I can't tell you, that's one person that just sticks out of my head. There was countless people, and probably people I don't even know, that were sitting in front of that screen, wanting a community, wanting somebody while the pandemic was going on, and Friends in Recovery were there. Not Ed Chancho, not the Podfather, not Sweets, not Jersey Ed, nobody. Friends in Recovery communities were there, because we would stay on after the meeting for hours, just talking to each other. Chris Cudahy, remember Chris Cudahy?
Sure. I still have his vest.
You still have his vest, yeah. Chris was always a recurring host. But
the
Chris,
Brit, right?
The Brit, yeah. Chris helped me through a lot of things. Chris helped a lot of people on those meetings.
Yeah.
So that's what Friends in Recovery is about.
Right.
It used to be about a podcast helping people that way. Now we have it, the community. It's unbelievable the way it's going. So I just want to, before we close, I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for coming on the anniversary show. I couldn't ask for better people. I couldn't handpick a better crew than this sitting right here. Mr. Jonathan was, who was with us before. And Chrissy, now you're part of the family. You're here
it's
now.
Been a pleasure.
Bringing you a T-shirt.
Exactly. But the past host and the current host, Meg, Tiffany, Skylar, Chris once in a while coming on, and Bambi and Beth. We couldn't do it without you guys. We couldn't do it without. We wouldn't be here today without everybody who followed who kind of got us through here. So
that's right.
Thank you guys. Thank you, community. We love you guys. We love everything that you guys are doing for us. And stay sober, everybody.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.